You already know the answer. Somewhere between your last raise and your last purchase, you felt it. Not excitement, not progress. Something closer to a door closing. You made more this year than you did 3 years ago, and somehow you have less room to move, less room to breathe, less room to say no. And if the next 6 months play out the way the last six did, that door doesn't just close, it locks. There's a number in your life right now, a specific number, that if it changed, would make almost everything feel different. But here's what will keep you up tonight if you let it in. That number is not your salary. It's not your net worth. It's not your credit score. And by the time I tell you what it actually is, you'll realize you've been solving the wrong equation your entire adult life. Most people believe the path is simple. Earn more, save some, invest the rest, repeat until free. And if you're watching this, you probably followed that path more faithfully than almost anyone around you. You got promoted. You increased your contributions. You read the books. You skipped the luxury you could technically afford because you were being responsible. And somewhere around year 5 or 6, you looked up and realized something that made your stomach drop. You are more dependent now than when you made half this much. Not because you were reckless, because the system is designed to make your raise feel like a leash disguised as a reward. Every new tier of income came with a new tier of obligation. A better apartment because now you could. A car payment that felt reasonable at the new salary. Insurance you didn't need before because you didn't have things worth insuring. And none of it was irresponsible. All of it was logical. That's what makes it so dangerous. The trap doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like progress. But what if income was never the mechanism of freedom in the first place? What if the entire model, earn more to become more free, is not just incomplete, but structurally inverted? Think about a building, not a house, a high-rise, 40 floors, glass and steel, the kind of structure that looks powerful from the outside. Most people spend their entire financial lives adding floors. Another promotion, another floor. A new income stream, another floor. A bigger portfolio, another floor. And they keep building upward because that's what they were told success looks like. Height, visibility, altitude. But no one tells you what happens to a building when you keep adding floors without deepening the foundation. It doesn't collapse immediately. That's the trick. It stands. It looks fine, maybe for years, but the engineering changes. Every new floor adds weight. Every new weight adds stress to the base. And the taller the building gets, the less force it takes to bring the whole thing down. Not an earthquake, just wind, a shift in the market. A job transition that takes 4 months instead of 2. A medical bill that isn't catastrophic, but isn't small either. The building doesn't fall because of the event. It falls because it was never built to absorb pressure. It was built to look tall. Now picture a different structure. Same materials, same budget, but this one is only 4 stories high. It looks ordinary, unremarkable. Nobody photographs it. Nobody points to it from across the city. But its foundation goes 40 feet into the ground, reinforced, redundant, anchored into bedrock. When the wind comes, and the wind always comes, it doesn't sway. When the ground shifts, it holds. Not because it's stronger in some dramatic way, because it was built with a different question in mind. The first builder asked, "How high can I go?" The second builder asked, "How much can I survive?" That question changes everything. And if you let it in right now, it will start rearranging every financial decision you've made in the last 5 years. Not because those decisions were stupid, because they were answers to the wrong question. The shift doesn't start with a spreadsheet. It starts with a feeling. You know the one. You're sitting in a meeting or standing in a grocery store or lying in bed at 2 in the morning and a thought crosses your mind. Not a dramatic thought, a quiet one. What if this stops? What if the deposit doesn't hit next month? What if the thing I built my entire structure on simply pauses? And in that moment, you don't calculate, you feel. You feel the exact weight of every obligation sitting on top of a single income source. And the feeling is not panic. It's something worse. It's awareness. Awareness that you are one layer of glass away from a completely different life. Not homeless, not desperate, but restructured in a way you didn't choose. And that awareness, that whisper, is the most important financial signal you will ever receive. Because it's telling you the truth your bank account can't. You are tall, but you are not deep. Before this shift, you measure progress vertically. After it, you measure progress in tolerance. Not how much you can earn, but how long you can hold your position when earning stops. Not how fast you can grow, but how slowly you can bleed. Not how many opportunities you can chase, but how many bad ones you can walk away from without flinching. This is not pessimism. This is structural awareness, and it changes the way you show up in every room you enter. Think about what happens in a negotiation when one person needs the deal and the other doesn't. The person who needs it talks faster, concedes earlier, accepts terms they wouldn't accept if they had 6 months of runway instead of 6 weeks. The person who doesn't need it pauses, lets silence do the work, makes the other side fill the gap. Not because they're more skilled, because they're more insulated. Their foundation is deeper, and depth creates calm. Calm creates clarity. Clarity creates leverage. This is the chain no one teaches you. Not because it's secret, because it's slow. And slow doesn't sell courses. Have you ever noticed that the people who talk most about their income are almost never the ones with the most freedom? That's not coincidence. That's architecture. Here's where the numbers enter. Not as a lesson, as confirmation of something you already feel. The average American household earning over $100,000 a year has less than 4 months of essential expenses saved in liquid form. 4 months. That means for every 3 people you know who earn 6 figures, 2 of them are structurally no different from someone earning $50,000 if the income stops for 1 fiscal quarter. The salary is different, the fragility is identical. And it gets worse, because at higher incomes, the contractual obligations are higher. The mortgage is bigger, the car note is fatter, the insurance premiums are steeper. So the effective survival window, the number of months you can exist without income while maintaining your legal obligations, is often shorter at $150,000 than it is at $60,000. Read that again. The person earning less may actually be more free, not because they're smarter, because they have fewer floors and more foundation. There's a study, not widely cited, that tracked career decisions among mid-level professionals over a 7-year window. The single greatest predictor of whether someone made a lateral move that increased their long-term trajectory was not education, not network, not even skill. It was liquid reserves. The people who had 12 or more months of expenses accessible, not invested, not locked, accessible, were 4 times more likely to take a strategic career risk. 4 times. Not because the money funded the risk, because the money removed the fear. And fear. Quiet financial fear. The kind you don't even label as fear is the single most expensive force in your economic life. It doesn't show up on a balance sheet. It shows up in every decision you make when you stay in a job 7 months too long. When you say yes to a client you should fire. When you avoid the conversation that could change everything because the timing doesn't feel safe. Fear doesn't take your money, it takes your timing. And timing, in every financial model that's ever been built, is worth more than capital. So that number I mentioned at the beginning, the one that would change everything, it's not your income, it's not your investments, it's your runway. The number of months you can sustain your life, as it is right now, without a single dollar of new income. That is your real net worth. Not in accounting terms, in human terms, in freedom terms, in what would you actually do if you could choose terms. And most people have never calculated it. Not because they're careless, because they were never told it mattered. They were told the other numbers mattered. The salary, the title, the portfolio balance. And so they optimized for those, built the tallest building they could, and never once measured the depth beneath it. When this number changes, you change. Not in some motivational, vague sense, in observable, structural ways. Your voice changes in meetings, not louder, steadier. Your email responses get shorter, not rude, just clear. You stop over-explaining your decisions to people who have no vote in your life. You start noticing opportunities you couldn't see before, not because they're new, but because you were too contracted to look up. Optionality doesn't feel like luxury. It feels like oxygen you didn't know you were missing. And the people around you can't quite name what shifted. They just know something did. You're not more aggressive. You're less afraid. And in a room full of people making decisions from fear, the person making decisions from calm is the most dangerous one at the table. Not dangerous in a destructive sense. Dangerous in the sense that they cannot be controlled by conventional pressure. They can't be rushed. They can't be cornered. They can't be made to accept terms simply because the alternative is uncertainty. That person has depth. And depth, once built, compounds in ways that income never does. But here's where almost everyone destroys it. And this is the part I need you to hear more clearly than anything else in this entire piece. The moment you start to feel that stability, the moment your runway hits 8 months, 10 months, a year, something inside you will whisper that you've earned the right to expand again, to add a floor, to upgrade, to reward yourself for the discipline. And that whisper will feel completely rational. It will disguise itself as confidence, as earned progress, as the logical next step. And it is the most precisely engineered moment of financial self-destruction available to the modern professional. Because you are not expanding from strength. You are cannibalizing your foundation to build height you don't need. And you won't feel the cost immediately. That's the design. You'll feel it 9 months later, when an opportunity appears that requires you to pause income for 12 weeks, and you realize you can't take it. Not because you don't have money, because your money is committed, structurally assigned, contractually spoken for, and you are tall again, visible again, and trapped again. The next 6 months will not decide your financial future because of what the market does, or what the economy does, or what your company does. It will decide your financial future because of what you do with the gap between what you earn and what you need. That gap is not a savings opportunity. It is the raw material of freedom. And you will either use it to deepen your foundation or you will convert it into height. One of those paths leads to a life where you make choices. The other leads to a life where choices are made for you, politely, invisibly, one obligation at a time. The answer was never more. The answer was enough, held long enough to stop being afraid. Wealth is not money. Wealth is the number of bad options you can survive without fear. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. The building metaphor stops being a metaphor. You start looking at your own structure honestly. You start asking the second question instead of the first. Not how high, how deep. And in the silence of that question, something shifts that no raise, no bonus, no market rally, no promotion could ever give you. Control. Not the illusion of it, the architecture of it. quiet, invisible, yours. You already know the answer. Somewhere between your last raise and your last purchase, you felt it. Not excitement,